Hi everyone, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, so today we will go to learn about the new chapter about the business cycle model with the flexible prices and wages. Okay, I skipped chapter 12, not meaning that the chapter 12 is not important, but actually that before this, okay, I already post some videos related to the money. Okay, and then I think that the chapter 12 is just what the chapters that recall about the monies. Before this, you already learn about the money, what is money, the functions of money. Of course, there is 3 functions of money. I hope that you can read yourself for the chapter 12, but I'm more concentrate on to stress about the chapter 13, which is business cycle model with your flexible prices and wages. As usual, okay, before we start our class, okay, I want you to think why we need to study about the business cycle model with the flexible prices and wages. Okay, of course that from its title, business cycle model, it represents something that shows about the fluctuates because of the cycles, and then it relates to the macroeconomics variables. And then after that, okay, from its topics, okay, we look from the prices. Prices means that it will influence the price of the goods and services, and then prices seems that reflects to the inflations. Okay, when we said about the flexible prices and wages, in the model before, okay, the prices is not changed every day. Price, which in the Keynesian model, normally that we heard about the sticky price model. Okay, and wage is about the opposite to the flexible wages is the wage rigidity, right? So in this model, for this topic actually, okay, we will look about the real business cycle model and the model which is Keynesian coordinating failure model, and in the new monetarist model. Okay, the element of the price and then the wages stickiness, flexible of the wages, or we can say that wage rigidity is related to the Keynesian's failure model. Okay, and the key questions for this chapter is we want to know that how does each model fits with the data, because of in economics normally that we will see and then try to test the data. For the first 2 model, which is the intended is to fit the average business cycle, and then the last one is intended to capture particular features of the financial crisis. Right. Now, what is the role of the government policy in each model? Okay. So this question actually that always become a hot issues and then hot topics, especially when we discuss about the topic, the issues of the business cycle. What is the role of the government policy? Okay, which government policy? In the government policy, we know that we have 2 types of the government policy. One is fiscal policy and another one is a monetary policy. So which types of the model is effective, right? And then when we discuss about the topic of the business cycle, actually that the John Maynard Keynes, okay, the person that pioneer in the general theories of employment, interest and money, okay, they published in 1936, which at that time that changed how the economists thought about the business cycle and the role of the government policy. And in 1990s, the Keynes thought had come to dominate the macroeconomic policy. Actually, class, at that time, most of the macroeconomists accepted Keynesian business cycle model as capturing the behavior of the economics in the short run, right? So that, okay, we can see that for that time, in that time, okay, we have the old Keynesian macroeconomic model and Keynesian model that exists before the 1980s, which is price, wage, inflexibility were the key of the mechanism in which shocks to the economics could cause aggregate outputs to fluctuate, right? So, on the other hand, actually, that in the old classical Keynesian view, okay, in the old I just explained to you about these, like I'm not saying that this is the history of the model, but actually that it is like what we call, like some backgrounds actually about this model. Right. So in the old Keynesian macroeconomic model, so the Keynesian model is existed before 1980s. All right. And then in the old Keynesian view, the facts that the price and wages are slow to move to their efficient values, which is, we can see now the slow move in the values, which is, for example, that if we can see that the price is not changed every day, right? So there will be a slow move, okay? But the price will change dramatically if we have shocks. Like now we have the pandemics, COVID-19 and so on, means that shows that we have shocks, right? Okay, so now, okay, and looking at the key principles of the rational expectations, okay, rational expectations revolutions, which macroeconomic models should have a base on the microeconomic principles. So in other words, that they should be grounded the descriptions of the preference, endowment, technology, and what we learn now is about the behavior of the consumer and firms. This is all actually that from the microeconomic principles, right? So the model with flexible wages and then the price can be productive vehicles to study macroeconomic phenomena, right? So this is that how the explanations of the backgrounds of this chapter. So when we talk about the real business cycle model, okay, real business cycle model, so the business, as the name itself means that cycle means that they have a situations of the up and down, and then the business cycle are caused by fluctuations of the factors productivity. There is no rules in the government in smoothing business cycles. Okay, before this, last class, we learned and we touched the topic of consumption smoothing model, right? So consumption smoothing model deals with the fluctuates or means that you are consume now and then maybe you are less consumed in the future, for example, because of you don't have your saving. So in this topic, when we discuss about the business cycle model, we assume there is no rules of the government in smoothing business cycle. So cycle are just optimal response to the technology shocks, and the model fits well with the data, right? To understand more about this chapter, actually that we need to recall some of our understandings in chapter 3, for example, okay, and then in chapter intertemporal model, chapter 11, okay. And why the issue now is, why it is necessary to study several different business cycle models, right? So as we already discussed in chapter 3, so the business cycle model is remarkably similar in terms of the movement among the macroeconomic time series. However, business cycle model can have many causes, which is the fiscal and monetary policy makers are constantly struggling to understand what macroeconomic shocks are driving the economics, driving the economy, and what is the implies of the future aggregate activities, right? So we know that each business cycle model that we study allows us to understand one or more few features of the economics, and then some aspect of the economics respond to macroeconomic shocks. And putting all these features into the model would produce an unwidely mass of, and that would be help to understand the fundamentals of the business cycle behavior and then the government policy. So this is what we call that will fits well with the data. Right. Different business cycle actually, different business cycle model, however, sometimes give contradictory advice concerning of the role of the government policy. Of course, that each model have some weakness and advantages, right? So the policymaker, okay, in federal and states government in the central bank often disagree about directions of which policy should move, and then to make persuasive arguments. However, policymakers have to go to ground all those arguments and well articulated macroeconomics model. So this chapter actually that shows that in parts we can evaluate and compare macroeconomic model and some of the conclusion about their relative usefulness. Okay, so now we go to the next slides. Okay, okay. When we talk about the business cycle models, okay, this is the business cycles looks like. It means that we have up and down and up and down, and then business cycles theory was introduced by Finn Keelens and then Edward Prescott in 1990s. These models are actually that they close track with the solo residuals, okay, and then where the productivity shocks appear to be potential explanation for the business cycles. So in the solo growth model, they use the solo residual. Residuals, what do you understand with the residuals? Residual is something that the shocks, okay, which is we cannot explain in some variable, so that they are considered as a residual. To understand this, actually, that we need to recall many factors that lead to the change in total factor productivity. Okay, essentially, okay, the change imply that economy can produce more aggregate outputs and in the same factors of inputs of total factor productivity. So that Z is equal to total factor productivity. Okay. Before we explain about this figure, okay, I will this figure will be explained in the next record, okay, because of I just can record 15 minutes for one time, okay, so that I end this one first and then continue with the figure 13.2 for the next recording. Thank you.